learn all about living in Xalapa, Mexico. From Expats Sarah DeVries in this video interview with Expats in Mexico. So tell us a little bit about Xalapa.
Well, Xalapa is a very cool city. It's changed so much since the first time I came here. It's one of those cities, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but I feel like it's always very noticeable, the cities that were here before the Spaniards arrived and the cities that they built. So Xalapa was already here. If you look at a map of it, it's kind of like a balled up piece of string. Like there's no really grid patterns to the street. A lot of the streets are quite narrow, so it's not really up to date infrastructure wise. A lot of the places in it, and now. So when I first came here, there was never any traffic anywhere. Now there's a lot of traffic everywhere. Like everyone who can get a car is getting a car. So there's quite a bit of traffic now, but it's a university city, so lots of kind of an intellectual, artsy vibe. The music school with the Universidad Veracruzana is supposed to be pretty much the best in Mexico. The orchestra is excellent; they're so good. There are a lot of kind of hippie type activities, art classes, yoga classes. There's kind of a folk music, like son jarocho revival, lots of people learning how to play the jarana, and things like that. The food is delicious. I think Veracruz has the best food in all of Mexico. It's so good.
What do you like?
What food do I like? Oh, so many. I mean, a lot of the foods are basically the same ingredients, just arranged differently, right? But my favorite food are called picadas. In the center of the country, they're more known as like sopes, but it's basically like corn tortillas that are a little thicker and folded up around the corners, kind of like a little pizza. And you put either beans or salsa or something, and then cheese or chicken or something on top of it.
Is it fairly inexpensive to eat there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, prices. And actually, I addressed this a little bit in the last article I wrote in Mexico News Daily. I got prices for a lot of things like taxis, like food, have really stayed pretty low. Like So, if I go to the market, I can fill my bag with fruits and vegetables for about 150 pesos, like a big filled bag of stuff. So, thankfully prices for some things have stayed fairly low, like for food. Rent is really low. I rent a really nice house for 6,000 pesos a month. Look at this view. I'm in front of a park. I have this
nice
thing. So prices for some things have stayed fairly low. Wages are really low here because there's not really an industry. Like if you don't work for the government or for the university, you either work for 6,000 pesos a month somewhere, or you have your own business in the informal economy.
Tell us a little bit about the house you rent. How big is it, and how many rooms? And
this is actually the nicest house I've ever lived in my life. It has 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, which I don't think we need 3, but it's the house. It has a really nice, spacious living room, a kitchen, and a separate dining room, kind of a backyard, which is something I've never had in Mexico. Kitchen cabinets and and a pantry are a novelty for me as well. But yeah, it's just so nice. Well, and I was really lucky to find this house too, because for the same price, we could have found something a lot less cool. But I was very insistent about asking around, like if friends knew of anyone renting. So a friend actually whose parents live next door said, "Well, I think my parents' neighbor was saying that she wanted to rent her house. So let me ask her." And then,
That's the best way to find a place.
yeah, and I basically annoyed these people until I got what I wanted, and here we are.
Now, where's your home located relative to Centra?
Oh, I can walk there in about 20 minutes or 25 minutes, so fairly close. It's interesting because this part where I live, it's like the edge of town that is closest to downtown. So I'm right. So this park basically, there are a few houses beyond the park, but basically beyond this is the old highway to Coatepec, a neighboring town that's about a 20-minute drive away. So I feel like I kind of have the best of both worlds. Like I look out the window and it looks like I'm living in nature, but I've still got, the an avenida close by with all the verdurerias and places to buy food and stuff, and then downtown isn't too far.
What do you do?
Well, my main gig is teaching English online with a Chinese company called VIP Kid. I'm honestly trying to get out of that and transition into writing. Like I like teaching okay. I'm good at it. Like it's an easy enough job, but the hours are just so bad, and I feel like I feel like I'm getting too old for these kinds of hours. Like it's early morning. China is 13 hours ahead of us. Well, Beijing, where most of my students are, is 13 hours ahead of us. So their after school time for us is like 3 or 4 a.m. And I have a 5-year-old daughter. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm just not up for it anymore. So I'm actually working hard to to transition into writing.
You got a big future in writing.
Oh, thanks. I'm trying really hard.
Well, obviously,
Really
it
trying.
made your transition to Mexico extremely easy, considering that you were a major at the university, and you're married to Carlos, who
Right.
is a Mexican national, and so you have his family there, and you're fluent in Spanish, and you teach English online, so it's no issue being integrated into Mexico, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, sometimes I feel, yeah, because I'll always be a foreigner, like no matter how good my Spanish is, no matter how much I understand the culture, like I'll always be kind of like, I don't know, sometimes I feel a little like an exotic bird. Like no one, like if I start speaking Spanish, there'll always be someone that looks at me as if a dog had suddenly started speaking. You know what I
Are there any other expats in Jalapa?
Yes, there are. I actually, I'm actually friends with the director of the study abroad program, still lives here. He doesn't do that job anymore, but I'm friends with him and a few other, really, I mostly just know older expats. Like most of the expats that I know here are at least 50 years old or older. I don't know very many people my age here in Jalapa that are expats, or if I do, they'll be here for a year or two and then move.
What attracts them to Jalapa?
I think they just like the hippie-ish, artsy vibe. I'm sure they like, especially if they're older, they probably have more savings that can stretch a long way, especially here with the low cost of living. Well, and it's just a nice vibe here. Like it's nice to be in the mountains. The weather is pretty much always perfect. I mean, it gets really cold. I mean, really
How
cold
cold?
for
How
me. It's like
does it
down to the
snow?
50s, but no, it doesn't snow. For me, 45 degrees is ridiculously cold. Like, I hate being cold. So, and
I
45
agree.
degrees is the same inside as outside. So there are a few months where it's literally like 45 to 50 degrees inside my house. And it's just awful. For people that are from the north, they're like, oh, it's fine. I'm not cold. But
Well,
oh,
there's
it's
probably no heating there. You probably use space heaters, right?
right. Exactly. Yeah, there's obviously there's no central heating. And then the windows are mostly symbolic. They don't do anything.
Yeah,
At least the windows in my house are mostly symbolic.
there aren't many screened windows in Mexico, so
Oh, and that is another cool feature of this house. I actually have screens. I've never had a house in Mexico with screens before, but this house has it.
wow.
Yeah,
Aren't you special?
yeah, I really do. I'm like, how did I land this great house? It has
So
everything.
Jalapa is right in the mountains.
Hmm. Yeah, it's in. I think the proper name for the ecosystem is cloud forest. So like most mornings, the sun is out and it's nice and shiny, and then usually around 2 or 3, even though in the time I've been here, I've noticed it changing, but around 2 or 3, typically like the clouds will come in and it'll rain a little bit in the afternoon. Especially right now, summer is the rainy season, so it's raining quite a bit every day.
Did you ever really experience any culture shock, considering that you married a fellow from Jalapa?
Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I kind of what I wrote about in that in one of my blogs, I really did. I cried the first month in Mexico. I cried like every day because I just felt so stupid. Like they gave me a host family with like a 3-year old and an 8-year old. Initially, we were in Cuernavaca for like an intensive month-long class. So I had these kids, and I just thought, oh my God, this 3-year old can understand things and talk, and I don't know what's going on. And then the 8-year old thought it was hilarious to like talk really fast to me, and then say something like, "No me entendiste, verdad?" Not helpful. So, I mean, there was the initial culture shock, I think, that everybody has. And then, with Carlos's family, it's been very nice. Like I get along really well with his mom.
What are the three things that you really love about living in Jalapa?
Oh, mm, I love live music. And there is always live music to be had. So there's the orchestra, which is excellent and expensive. In a lot of cafes and restaurants, they'll have live music. Sometimes even on the bus. Like you might get on the bus and someone gets on the bus and starts playing playing the guitar. So I love just being surrounded by music, and like if I feel like listening to music, there's always a place to find it. Um, what else? I love being in I love the nature of Jalapa. Even the rundown parts of the city are still kind of pretty because there's just green spilling over onto everything and mountains all around. Like it's just beautiful. Even, even if there are some kind of rougher parts of the city, like plants still kind of take over here. Uh, and some of those plants are coffee plants, and we get the most delicious coffee here. It's so fresh, like it grows just down the road. There are several coffee producers in this area,
Mm.
and it's just so good.
I love Mexican coffee.
It's really nice.
If you're going to give someone thinking about moving to Mexico from Canada or the United States or any other country, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Come ready to have your expectations challenged. Punctuality, for example. For Americans, and for me still, I'll admit, I haven't been able to shake this in almost 20 years being here. But you just can't get mad every time someone is late because it doesn't have the same level of importance here. So I feel like for Americans, at least for me personally, like the level, like it's important to get places on time. It shows respect, and it's just an important thing to do. So if I'm not on time for something, I feel really flustered, like, oh God, I'm making somebody wait. That's so rude. I'm giving them the message that they're not important or their time isn't important, and I just can't do that. But here, time is not, being on time is not such a big deal. So for us, for example, maybe it's not a big deal to use sir, ma'am, address people formally. Whereas here in Mexico, it is kind of a big deal. Like you want to address people properly. I think our concept of punctuality is important on that level, and their concept of punctuality is as important as our concept is of addressing people formally, for example. So just to expect and try your best to acclimate to different expectations, not just of the culture, but of manners, what's considered polite or rude, and how important those polite or rude things are.
Sarah, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Great conversation, and we look forward to working with you in the future.